You know what? Go ahead and laugh at me. I deserve it. I mean, I'm the one who believed the hype. I'm the one who took the promises and all of the trailers at face value. I'm the one who dropped money on a game without reading any of the reviews first, without watching anybody play the game, because I wanted to go in fresh. So, yeah, all of that considered, I probably deserve the disappointment with this game that I feel right now. And you know what the worst part is? I'm stuck with this. Okay, I can't do anything with it. Like, I can't afford a 3DS capture card. I can't. And I can't even sell it back on Amazon to anybody right now because of their policies during the holidays. So I'm just stuck with this sitting on my shelf as a constant reminder that you should never, ever, 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 ever pre-order video games. But bound and determined as I am to always do something productive, I started taking to writing out a document as I was playing this game. All of the little things I noticed here and there that I would have changed had I personally been given the keys to a franchise like this. And before anybody tells me to go out there and prove it, like, why don't you go make it yourself in a ROM hack or something, let me remind you that both Pokemon Uranium and another Metroid 2 remake were both removed from the Game Awards this year, from the Best Fan Creation category. The Game Awards, of which, may I remind you, Nintendo is a sponsor. Yes, that's right, they have officially pulled a Konami. So really, let me ask you, is there even a point? Like, if I spend the next decade making a ROM hack, it's just gonna get DMCA'd within a day, and even if I make a totally different franchise that has all of those elements, that's not gonna change this. Okay? The reason I'm going about it this way is because I know you guys will actually listen to my feedback. And if there's anything I've learned over the years, it's that that is the last thing, the absolute last thing Nintendo will ever do. You know what's the benefit of living with my friends now? I'm getting to do all the cool nerd stuff I never had the time nor the resources for in the past. Things like multiplayer games, Magic the Gathering, and tabletop RPGs. And for those of you who don't know what tabletop games are, it's Dungeons & Dragons. It's a set of rules that allows you and a group of other people to collectively tell a story together, usually about high fantasy and grand adventure. Now, there are tons of different tabletop RPGs out there. Personally, my group uses a system called Heroes Unlimited, which is focused around letting you make, you guessed it, superheroes. But because our dungeon master is clever, he found a way to use this system to create a Wild West wonderland where dinosaurs still exist. And that's one of the things that immediately struck me about the format. The sheer creativity these games allow for. Provided you have the points for it, you can be anyone, do anything. That's what makes these games so fun, and it's reminded me of what the acronym stands for. Role-playing game. As in, the very appeal is that you are playing the role of someone else. You are let free to do what you want in a fantastical world of someone else's construction, where your choices and your decisions shape the direction and outcome of the story. Your story. Now here's my question. In a format whose driving concept is that players have agency, why are video games so scared to embrace that concept? And I'm not talking about the obvious, okay? There isn't enough time, money, and polygons out there to accommodate an infinite amount of character customization. I get that. But even in a game where you're given a character who has an established backstory and mission, you can still achieve an engaging level of player freedom. So you're the hero ordained by fate to save the world. Okay, what do you do about it? You could liberate the land from darkness, or you could decide to conquer it yourself instead. I mean, there aren't any legends about who's gonna stop you, but there are 7 kingdoms worth of armies you'll have to cut through along with the monsters if you go this route. Or maybe you prefer the role of a manipulator. You want to work from the background and hire minions to do your dirty work for you, slowly taking over the kingdoms from within by means of persuasion or assassination. Even if you decide to be the champion of light, who says your methods are the right ones? Sure, you'll stop the encroaching darkness, but at what cost? Who do you side with? What are you willing to sacrifice for the greater good? And the big one, will those actions leave the world even worse off than it might have been without you? How you answer these questions is what makes the story interesting. Certainly more interesting than just, hey kid, you're the hero, go save the world. Okay, boop-a-doop-a-doo. There are so many advantages to letting the player dictate their own destiny, or failing that, at least giving the illusion of options. Like, consider The Witcher. In those games, there are usually multiple solutions to every problem, and sometimes things might not even actually be what they appear to be. The end result is roughly the same, and the player is sent back on the main questline with varying rewards based on what they did. But that's not what it feels like. When you discover that somebody's trying to pull a fast one on you in these games and you turn it around on them, you feel clever. You feel like what you did meant something, and better yet, it pays off for you as the designer because rewarding your players for taking a closer look at things means they feel naturally compelled to get engrossed in what's going on. This is basic psychology, the principle of attracting more flies with honey than vinegar. Why do I want to learn about the world? Because I'm supposed to? No, because knowing where to go and what to say will give me more quests. Why do I want to protect the other characters? Because you say I should? No, because their safety directly benefits me, either by meaning shops will stay open or by their presence in combat helping to keep me alive. But what about my narrative, the writers amongst you may be asking? What about the story I want to tell? This is my game, confound it! And I'm telling you right now, that's a rookie mistake. It's a weird concept to try and digest at first, but this thing you've created isn't actually yours. It's everybody's. There's a reason it's called a controller, because the instant you hand one off to your player, you have officially surrendered control of how events will play out. And the instant you give that control to someone else, you have made them a silent promise. A promise that if they work hard enough, play long enough, and show enough devotion to what you've built, they will grow to the point of being able to save, or conquer, the entire world. That's role-playing. That's the mindset you need to adopt to get this genre right. You have to accept that nobody wants to watch cutscenes unless they willingly go out of their way to find them. You have to be willing to let people miss entire parts of the world you've built, because if you just spell out the whole thing for the player, finding them won't mean anything. And I guarantee you that given the opportunity, anybody hearing a bad guy give an evil monologue will want to take the renegade option. Play with that. Get clever with that. Because here's the trick, just because the player has options doesn't mean those options don't have consequences. In Soul Nomad and the World Eaters, there is a dark story, but if you try to take it on your first playthrough, you're gonna get stomped. Huh. It's almost like making everybody hate you is a fast way to an early grave. In Deus Ex Human Revolution, if you screw around for too long on the first story mission, an explosion will kill all the hostages you were trying to save. I mean, you were told you were in a hurry. It's not Eidos' fault you decided to play with the physics engine instead of doing your job. And pretty much the entirety of Mass Effect 2 is this. You won't even know how important your decisions in that game really are until they cost you everything. I don't even buy the argument that all these extra variables are harder to design around. Yeah, the original Legend of Zelda was so freeform that you could get the white sword, several heart containers, and the blue ring all before you even entered your first dungeon. And yes, that did break the difficulty curve for a while, but considering you had to be either very clever or just know the game already to know you could do that, you're totally justified in expecting that extra work to pay off. It requires a downright tiring amount of grinding for rupees and other resources, so not only was this process arduous enough to put most people off it in the first place, but for those that persevered, it felt incredibly rewarding to down the first few bosses in like a second. Or you could just tough it out like most people, and that's fine, because that was your choice. And whatever end result you get, it's so much more satisfying because of the fact that no one forced you to go about it that way. I'm actually learning how to be a DM myself these days because I feel like it'll help me become a better game designer. And pretty much every guide I found on the subject agrees on one thing. Never tell your players no, because then you're playing their characters for them, and where's the fun in that? That's a lesson I think video games could benefit from more often, because in this genre at least, you should never underestimate the power of giving your player just a little bit of freedom. Figured I'd show you guys my Pokemans. First off, we have Patches here, which is not only the name of the little fuzzball that I've got in real life, but it also sounds a lot like Matches, which I think fits the character quite well. Now, a lot of people say that these games bring them back to their childhood, makes them feel like a kid again. I tell you, the only thing that makes me feel like I'm 12 again is the fact that I named my Pick-a-Peck Woody. Yup. This is Nasher. Been raising him for a while. Just found out that HMs apparently don't exist in this game, so got no reason to keep him around once he evolves. This is delicious. Here's Mage, the Magnemite. I pretty much just introduced him to the team to cover up type weaknesses, but I'm not going to need him anymore because of the guy that I also have in this roster. That is a train car. Like, that is straight up a train. That is the morning commute Pokemon right there. Like, look at that thing. As soon as the autofocus kicks in. Like, I did not know they were going to go into this direction. If I did, I would have named him something maybe more appropriate, like Gordon, or at least it's not a freaking trash bag. Also, I want to point out something about Patches here. Look what he's holding. This is an item called a red card. Okay, when the holder is hit by an attack, the attacker is removed from battle. That's a free roar whenever you take damage. That thing is insta-banned from tournaments. Okay, there is no way anybody would allow that in official league play. No way it's gonna stand in organized tournaments. Like, you give that to a special wall or just a physical tanky type Pokemon like Snorlax or something, or Ferrothorn even, and it's just going to be impossible to kill. You'll never have the right guy on the field with the right moves to take care of it. Not to mention how overpowered that makes moves like Stealth Rock and Spikes, Poison Barb, things like that. I think that's the name of an item, but you get my point. The only reason I'm using it against NPCs, however, though, is because, well, let's be honest here, it's not going to have any negative repercussions now, is it?